Yes. Okay. And then two, normally I do this at the end, but I miss people, I forget. Can we quick take a group photo before we even do the interview and discussion? Okay.
Yes, please.
All right. So if you guys have your books, if you don't have a book, I will Photoshop a book into your screen somewhere. You can hold up your hand, hold up an object, a finger, whatever. Okay. I'm gonna take a couple screenshots, so just keep your smiles on. All right. Okay, keep going. There's 2 pages of you guys, so hold on. Ah, all right. We're all bound to be in here, I think. Hi, Brian. How are you?
I'm wonderful. How's everybody doing?
I think we're all good. Uh,
Good.
we've been hanging for a little bit now, just chatting about the book, of course. But I have a stack of questions for you if you're ready. If you're ready to talk, breathe in, bleed out, and etc.
I am so ready.
Awesome. Okay, so my first question that I have for you is about, of course, Breathe In, Bleed Out, and how the pacing and pattern of this book follows a slasher. So when you are writing a slasher and you want to ensure that the writing that you're doing is honoring the genre, what is important to you to maintain when you're writing a slasher?
Ooh, great question. Yeah, I mean, pacing is a big part of it. And I think working as a screenwriter for many years, a lot of that background comes into play in the way that I write novels. I'm a big outliner, so I start with like a cork board once I have an idea. In this case, slasher at a wellness retreat. And what are the big set pieces I want to see of like death by yoga, every one of them kind of was where I started, was placing like death scenes really. And then I kind of reverse engineered some of the characters so that the deaths felt more personal to these characters. Um, and yeah, and so I put the kind of note cards on the board and plot everything out the same way I would a screenplay. And then I'll do a more detailed outline because some of those will literally just be like death by yoga on a note card. It's not super helpful for actually writing a story. So then I'll do a more detailed outline in a document where I'm figuring out the character arcs and seeing if there's any discrepancies with the pacing and everything. This was my first time writing a proper murder mystery version of the slasher. So that required a really different approach to thinking about red herrings, and who do we think might be the killer at different turns. So that was a big part of the plotting for this one. That was a different experience.
Like if anyone looks in my window, they're gonna see some suspicious things written on the wall here. Death by
Yes, 100%. It's I just gave a lecture, a guest lecture today. I teach at ASU, and I gave a guest lecture in like an introduction to storytelling class all about horror, and we talked about how like yes, like we dance in the dark spaces and write terrible things happening to people, but we're really wonderful humans, we horror fans, I swear.
Yeah, so you're just in like talk about horror all day mode. That must be a
I,
dream.
it's truly living the dream to get to write books and films and TV, and then to teach students the craft of writing. And I don't force genre on anybody, but if I do get a student who's like, I want to write a horror script, I'm like, let's talk. But yeah, it's a dream to just get to talk story all day.
Yeah, that's great. So my second question about slashers for you is that slashers rely heavily on character archetypes. So how did you approach creation within that framework? Did you find it helpful to follow patterns, like the final girl or the killer, of course, or like the frat guy, which we were talking about earlier?
Yes. I think especially for this book, I wanted to like consciously think about those tropes and say first off, what is the kind of modern and specifically the modern LA version of those tropes? So um the like mean popular girl is the yoga teacher, the fratty jock is like the tech bro, um and the stoner is the EDM DJ. So there was this element of like playing with those tropes, updating them for modern times. But then for me, it's also important to, if I'm starting with what seems like a kind of one note stereotype, I always do my best to see like how can I peel back the layers of these characters as we go along. and show that there's still some depth here before I murder them all. But yeah, that'll happen.
Actually going to shift a direction. I do have more questions about slashers, of course, but you brought up
Yeah.
something um, I wanted to talk about, which was like the East Coast versus West Coast thing. So, I mean, I know this about you and some of the members in here, and Peg, of course. Hey, Peg, knows that you're from the East Coast. You're from New Jersey, but you live
Yeah.
and have lived on the West Coast and in California. So Breathe In and Bleed Out and Curse of the Reaper both seem to carry that distinctly West Coast atmosphere. There's something about them that feels that way, whether it's just movie influence or like the type of people. And of course, without giving any spoilers away for Curse of the Reaper, because we did not read that for the club. But do you think that the culture and energy and landscape of California kind of played a significant role in the writing of those books?
Yeah, for sure. I think they're both, even more specifically, they're both very Los Angeles stories. I mean, Curse the Reaper is Hollywood, so it's even more specific to an industry within LA, but LA very much is kind of an industry town. And then even though Breathe and Bleed Out is set in Joshua Tree, the fact that all of these characters live in LA and take the trip there, it's that's part of the culture as well of like that's where a lot of people go from LA to vacation and do their retreats and everything. So those two books especially are very sort of LA centric and certainly I was drawing in both books from people that I encountered. I lived in LA for 10 years working in film and TV. So it was a lot of drawing kind of bits and pieces from people that I knew and creating characters around that. Yeah.
Do you think that the West Coast inspired that sort of slasher desire because of the types of people you encounter, the types of archetypes you encountered, or is it just like a combination of your interests and proximity and those sorts of things?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm inspired to write slashers no matter what, and I think that the next one is going to be very different location wise in that it's set in Ireland actually, and that's going to be like a murder mystery slasher based on my experience living there for a brief for a study abroad experience. Um, so that one is super fun to then lean into a totally different tone and atmosphere. It's much more gothic inspired, both in like the plot and also, yeah, the location. It's set on an island. And it was really fun to like say, okay, I'm gonna lean into a different kind of subgenre here, but it's still gonna be the structure of that murder mystery slasher. Yeah.
That's cool. We kind of probably answered this question, but I'll ask it anyway if you have some more to add to it. California is often associated with warmth and freedom,
Yeah.
promise of something. But you seem to explore darker themes in your novels. So balancing that like lightness and brightness and freedom with darker things. How do you think those contrasts are interacting with your works?
Yeah, it definitely is something that for me is really important. Like it like first and foremost, I hope when anybody reads a book of mine that like there's a sense of fun. Like for me, and again, this might come from like the background of working in film and TV, like I want to entertain readers. Like and I think part of it is also for me as a reader, like the last thing I want to be is bored. That's like for me like the cardinal sin of a storyteller. And I think that that is a really kind of important North Star. But I also think that having the depth of characterization and a depth of theme and exploring real world stuff is also the only reason to write to like connect with other people through these themes and through these characters. So it is sometimes kind of a balancing act, and especially as somebody who like I really like to let humor infuse its way into the work as well. And trying to find that balance as well of like, okay, I want this scene to be scary, but also there's room for humor. I think like a chapter that comes to mind was Miles when he realizes that he's been dosed with his own stash of Molly, and like it's like I was trying to find a balance of like, okay, it's funny, but also it's really sad, and then it's scary, and how do you kind of have all of that in the stew at once? But I like trying to find that balance, I guess.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Also, that scene was really funny. Um, and almost like the dude, where's my car? Where it's just like, what's happening to me?
No, poor Miles.
So I know you mentioned Ireland from your past experience.
Mhm.
I want to know that would you imagine the energy or themes of your storytelling shifting if you were to write something on the East Coast? But I guess you kind of answered that.
Ooh. Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I definitely find that I'm someone who like tends to, and I guess this I've noticed this with a lot of writers is like you kind of keep picking at the themes that are recurring for you in your life, and um, but I think different shades of similar themes. So like, I mean, like Curse of the Reaper is like processing all of my like Hollywood trauma, and then uh, Candy Cane Kills and Kills Again it required two books to get through my religious trauma. And I think now with Breathe and Bleed Out, like looking back on it, it definitely was. And I often don't realize until I've written the book and then I look back at it and I'm like, oh, that's past relationship trauma that I'm processing. And it's the next one is very much a family centric story. So that's been fun to unpack. But it's such I don't know again like I say that with a laugh because there is a cathartic joy to getting to unpack all of that through stories and then to connect with readers who like have had similar experiences and get to share with me and there's a shared catharsis through that as well. So I think with each book I'm finding a different kind of vein to tap into from my personal well.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you for
Yeah.
answering.
Yeah.
So with screenwriting, I know you were kind of talking about your past experiences in screenwriting, but would you be able to share some of your past work experience just for us to
Yeah.
on the same page with that?
Absolutely. So I've written, I think five, maybe six. I should know the number. Lifetime original movie thrillers, um, with such titles as Nanny Nightmare, Sorority Nightmare, others that don't have Nightmare in the title, but I do not get to name them. Um, they were super fun to write, and that was also an area where they were encouraging of leaning into kind of a campy tone. So and also because they're TV movies, you're writing to commercial breaks. You have to make sure every 10 pages, 10 minutes or so, some kind of twist is keeping people coming back from the commercial break kind of thing. And then, hi, hey, Julie, thank you. Yeah, Dismissed is another film that I wrote that's not a Lifetime movie. That was an indie flick, produced by the company who made Barbarian. Well before Barbarian happened, they were just these kind of yeah, making horror movies on a shoestring, uh kind of guerrilla horror filmmakers, but we got a great cast for that one with Dylan Sprouse in the lead. And yeah, so then on the TV side, I wrote on the first season of Fuller House for Netflix, which is always an odd inclusion in my resume. Um, and then I sold an original series to Sci-Fi Network. So the way that works was like pitching an entire premise for a show. Um, and they hired me to write the pilot episode and develop it with them. And unfortunately, they ended up not producing it. So that was actually the point at which I kind of took a pause in my screenwriting career. And one of the reasons they didn't make it was they were like, we're only doing IP development now. So we only want to adapt books and comic books. So your original idea that we loved a year ago no longer fits our brand. And that's when I took a screenplay that never sold. That in the classic Hollywood case, every producer I met with was like, we love this script. We're never going to buy it or make it, but we love it. And so that was Curse of the Reaper. I adapted it into a novel, and now that is actually in active development. It's been optioned and re-optioned. And so that was, yeah, a really helpful kind of like career spin. And yeah, so I haven't been writing as much in screenwriting. I wrote a script adaptation of Candy King Kills. I have a director who's loosely kind of shopping it to companies right now. But right now, my focus is on writing the books and stories and then getting to kind of pick who I want to work with in terms of developing in the film TV space.
That's really exciting. And I'm sure now you can kind of see like the if you're writing something and what it could become that might help shift the way that you go about it. And we were kind of
Totally.
looking at how all of your work feels very like a movie's playing. And of course,
Hmm.
your past work experience, but that makes a lot of sense that, there's kind of that. inspiration of taking things and turning them into something, I'm sure that has had an effect on your work. And I think it showed in Breathe In, Bleed Out, where after a certain amount of like a certain point, I'm like, oh, something's happening. Then I'm like, now I'm reinvested again. And you're like, oh, I'm reading, and then something happens, and you get reinvested. So I'm sure that carries through too.
Yeah, and when I first started writing novels and short stories, I was a little self-conscious of like when I got, positive feedback, but the feedback being like, "Oh, this felt like I was watching a movie." I was like, "Does that mean I'm bad at writing books and that I'm doing this wrong?" But then, over time just realizing that's just my voice. As a novelist, it has a cinematic quality, but I like writing books and short stories so much more now because then I get to add some layers of depth that you just don't get to in a screenplay.
Sure. No, I don't think it's a an offensive remark of, this reads
Okay.
a movie, of course, and apologies if it came off that way, but I think
Oh no, not from you. I just meant like early in my career. That was like an insecurity I had that now I'm like, oh no, that's a good thing. So thank you.
yeah, you're able to create that sort of cinematic feel and that tone, but we are getting more on the in between, especially when you have like the internal monologue. Like you getting that is a nice joy in a book. We read a book by Adam Neville, um, maybe 2 years ago now, The Vessel, and
Yeah.
reading it, we're like, why? Something's off about it. And then during our meeting, somebody brought to my attention that it was written without internal dialogue so that it could be adapted. And it like almost had a layer where I was like, something's missing here for me. Um,
Yeah.
Definitely get that extra, juice to it when you're writing a book.
Yeah. It especially with Breathe and Bleed Out, writing Hannah's perspective in the first person was like and part of the joy of writing books is like I get to discover the characters on the page. Like I outline the whole story but I don't really know the characters until I'm drafting. And especially once I got into Hannah's head and voice, like she just like came alive in a way that I was not expecting. But I was like, oh, this is who she is. And I think a big part of that is like her kind of like self-deprecating, like masking her pain with humor and minimizing everything. Like it just made so much sense. I started to like see that in her and understand her more. But all through that internal thought process that I couldn't do if I was writing a screenplay.
Yeah. There's a question from Julia of how did you decide on writing a female main character? I thought it was well done when so many female characters written by men are not.
Thank you. That means a lot to me. I don't remember when I kind of made the conscious choice to write from her perspective as a female character, but it was something I was very conscious of and wanted to make sure that I was doing it right and that for me the the main thing is to just like let the character be messy, let her be human. I think that was another thing in thinking about the character tropes. And like, the final girl trope is like the pure virginal, like good girl. And I knew that I wanted to write a story where like from page one, like she's traumatized, she's messy, she's coping in all of the wrong ways. She's pushing her friends away. Like I just love starting a character in a place of, okay, this character has room to grow and room to learn. And that for me was kind of the key for her was just like, let her be human. And yes, some people will be put off by her, but those are the people that I'm most interested in kind of, again, peeling back those layers and seeing who they are underneath. But thank you.
That's a great point of starting from a place of kind of trauma or, room to grow where you kind of think of the opposite with a final girl where they start from a place of almost innocence.
Yeah, it kind of was it was necessitated in this case by the premise, which again I started with a slasher at a wellness retreat, and so I was like, well, obviously my main character needs to go there to heal from something. So, and then I realized I had an opportunity to have like a dual mystery narrative essentially. Once I realized like, okay, if we don't know exactly what happened with her and Ben out there in the wilderness, we can kind of keep that as a parallel mystery alongside who's killing everyone at the retreat kind of thing. Yeah.
I have a question here about how setting plays a very critical role in a slasher. And you talked about knowing that you wanted to have that centered in a wellness retreat. Do you have a connection or a moment where that became the inspiration for you?
The location.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, that was the whole reason to write the book for me. I was like, I think I st like I knew I wanted to write another slasher, and for me, it's all about the specificity of location. Like, the last two books were, you know, a family trapped in a house in over the winter, and then the sequel to Candy Cane was it's set in a church, so like setting was super important to that. And so I was like, okay, what's a location that I haven't seen done before in a slasher. And I actually started writing this book right after Curse of the Reaper, so before both Candy Cane books. And one of the reasons I put it down and kind of got in my head about maybe I shouldn't write this was Nine Perfect Strangers came out, the TV adaptation of the book. Um, it starred Nicole Kidman, and she plays a wellness guru, and it's kind of a mystery thriller. And I was just like, maybe this is a played out location. But ultimately, by the time I came back to it, I was like, it's so different. And one big difference is people are not getting picked off one by one. It's not that book and TV show is not a slasher by any means. Um, so I felt kind of confident coming back to it and saying, okay, I can still add something to this location that hasn't been done before. Yeah.
So this question that I have is going to be very spoilered, of course.
Yeah.
But if anyone would like to plug their ears, Chastity, I'm looking at you. Um, so the book brought in the concept of technology and surveillance towards the end, and how it can be kind of predatory. In addition to this traditional killer in a slasher, there's also this element of technology kind of surveilling. Did you set out to create that additional layer of something of a monster, or did it just kind of amount that way as you were writing?
Yeah, that was pretty early on. I knew that Guru Pax was gonna be like a big old red herring. Like almost it's almost like hard to even imagine that he wouldn't be. But I knew that I wanted him to have his own ulterior motives and his own secrets. And it just made so much sense to me, the idea of like if this wellness retreat is totally off the grid, totally unplugged, um, then part of that secret, I don't remember exactly when the idea occurred to me of like, oh, of course he's going to be like a startup tech bro who is actually has his like secret, like stupid Bond villain lair. Um, and it connected again back to the LA culture of it all, the Silicon Beach. And and I also think that for me, the theme of wanting to do like a satire of wellness culture and poke at it a little bit is because there's a lot of people who kind of take on that self-appointed guru status, but are actually just capitalists. Like they're just trying to exploit people and make money. And so it just to me was like it was already kind of a ready-made um, villain. Paul. But yeah, it was fun to play with. But I'll also say like part of this book was me like I went through my own kind of like spiritual journey of like reading all of those books and like writing Pax's dialogue was probably too easy because like I just knew all of that language and I could channel it so easily. And some of it is much like Hannah's reaction is like, okay, there is some sense to it, there is some reality to it. And that's for me, like that's where I always want to write books at, is where there's these sticky feelings around like the good and the bad and how they're both present. Um, but ultimately it's just about who is the one who wields power and who is the one, what are their motives? That's where things can get truly villainous.
That's great. So in our chat, we have Mia disguised as Paul. Part of that question says, was a therapist being the villain despite the faux guru character being a suspect, a commentary on how we blindly trust those we consider professionals over self-taught or holistic practices more blindly, despite the potential for each to cause just as much harm. So I guess from that, is there an element of like we blindly trust people that we view as a professional? Did that come to mind when you were writing this?
I think part of it was like wanting to to explore the idea that anybody, again, like in a position of power, could take that power and abuse it, right? And so again, like Guru Pax being like this almost obvious red herring villain from the start, but then having the therapist character and like that certainly I am very pro therapy to be clear. But that's almost especially why it felt like a good twist to add in there of the like what if of it all. Like what if somebody that you really trusted on your healing journey um also had ulterior motives and was not keeping your wellness at heart to heart. And I think it created a clear foil as well for the guru packs of it all of like the self-help like do-it-yourself guru style versus the more like medically trained approach to it. And to have Hannah, someone who is in the medical profession and has those doubts about all of this. Um, and that kind of makes it all the more of like a head fuck for her, I think, and for the reader ideally. Yeah.
We have a question of, did you decide who the killer was in the beginning, or did you decide later? Did you have that clear plan when you were writing?
There was at some point in the development, um, Tess was the killer, and it became very quickly clear to me like that wasn't a good way to go. And I was very grateful for that clarity because then it allowed her, for one thing, it allowed her to become another red herring. When I when I did my tour event at Doylestown Books with Adam Caesar, the first thing he said was he like held up my book and he was like, I call this Red Herring, the novel. And I was like, I guess I didn't think about how many diversions and red herrings and like trying to cast possible like could be this, could be that, could be you, could be that. Um, but then Tess becoming just another red herring, and also for me, I think when I got to the end of the book, realizing that like that friendship was important to me to keep at the end. That that connection between those characters felt genuine in a way that I wanted to keep. So yeah, it wasn't always, and there was a version of the story at maybe at that time. Dr. Grady wasn't even in the story, if I remember correctly. I think he was a bit of a later addition, as was Waylon Barlow. There was a time when when I had a different kind of version of, I wasn't sure what if I was going to show what the slasher killer looked like, or if it would just be kind of a shadowy figure. And then I discovered the mining history in Joshua Tree, and I was like, oh, there's something there. So that was a big important discovery.
Is that real, the history of that?
Not Wayland Barlow. It but the actual like the fact that there were all of these different mines and like a lot of abandoned mines, like people go hiking and you should not go into abandoned mines, but it happens. And yeah, so that was the thing that made me just think of like, okay, what if I create this character? But yeah, a lot of the other historical elements, especially of the Chemehueve, like was all research and from reality. But yeah,
Yeah. I didn't know that about the mines. That's really interesting.
yeah.
Another reason not to go hiking, everybody. Don't do it.
Hmm.
Um, so we have a question about the slasher genre and the different elements within it. Is there any element of a slasher genre that you don't like and that you kind of stayed away from in your novel, or you would try and like to rewrite?
Element of the slash.
Anything about
I
slasher?
mean,
Like,
yeah, I mean, I feel like the old tropes of I mean, people having sex and drinking and doing drugs getting punished by like a, you know, puritanical killer kind of thing. I feel like we're pretty past that trope of it all. And yeah, I mean, I think one of the things I try to do is also like not be like making sure nobody's off limits, I think is an important thing too. I think some of the older slashers are like, we're gonna punish these stupid kids kind of thing. And I think that for me it's like much more painful if especially like people who you feel like don't deserve to die and playing with those expectations.
yeah, I get that. I think that that's a reframe that I feel like I'm seeing where it's less of the like sex is bad, you're going to get
Yeah,
punished. Drinking is bad, you are getting punished. Uh,
yeah.
Mike asked, how do you feel about current slashers like Heart Eyes, the X trilogy, Terrifier, In a Violent Nature, and how do they compare to classics like Jason, Freddy, Michael?
Jason is my favorite. Friday's my favorite franchise. I don't care for Terrifier. I didn't before even the news that's coming out now that's horrible. But I think that it's probably why I don't care for them. Is that there's a mean-spiritedness to that franchise that just doesn't
Yeah.
resonate with me. I um but I mean I like Final Destination is a franchise that really is probably a big influence that as I mentioned the author's note, I feel like that's a slasher franchise. And again, part of it is like there's a sense of fun to it. It's like so over the top that there's like a comedic bend and a campiness that I really enjoy. And that's one of the reasons I love the Friday franchise is because, Jason is he's fighting telekinetic teenagers and taking a boat to Manhattan, and I just love all and going to space, of course, and I love all of that zaniness.
Of course, don't lie. It's just because you're from New Jersey.
Yeah,
Right.
it's my home state, fella.
Are there any, I did have a question here about weird New Jersey. Are there any favorite Jersey lore that you have, or just East Coast lore, like horror things or, cryptid?
Ooh. Yeah, I mean like the Jersey Devil's probably the most famous one, but there's also the Pig Lady, which is worth looking up. That's a creepy one. Um and it has like there's many different versions of it. But yeah, I mean it's Weird NJ is the original like old school. Yeah, I don't know what it is about Jersey, but I have a lot of pride in that now.
Yes, I think Jersey has had a bad rep, but people are coming around.
Yes,
Um,
exactly. That includes me. I feel like I wanted to get out as soon as I could, and now I'm like, whenever I go back, I'm like, it's beautiful here.
I love it here. Did
Yeah.
you see Hard Eyes, by the way?
Yes, yes.
I felt like it was like Scream for hopeless romantics, is what
It
my
was really fun, and I appreciated that they're he's playing with like the structure of a rom-com alongside the structure of a slasher, and I thought it was super fun.
yeah. So I'm gonna look through on the side here. So I'm gonna ask you a question for some of, not book related things, your book related things. But do you have any movie recommendations for us as horror film lovers, slasher or non-slasher, of course?
Hmm. Um, I will go with because I feel like it's still underrated and underseen. There's a movie called Behind the Mask: The Rise of Leslie Vernon, and it is a mockumentary style slasher about a documentary crew who is following a slasher as he's preparing for his next massacre. So it's mostly a comedy, but it's very kind of referential horror, and it's just, yeah, it's delightful.
That sounds very up your alley based on all that we've talked about.
Been a big influence. I think it was a big influence on Curse the Reaper as well, of that like self-referential element of the slasher. Yeah,
Did you see Shelby Oaks yet? Speaking of mockumentary.
I have not. Is it good?
I thought it was okay. That's all I'll say.
Okay. All
This is
right.
where I tell you more information. Um,
All right.
okay, some questions in here. Did you see Thanksgiving?
Yes, I enjoyed Thanksgiving. It was very fun. It was definitely had that throwback late 90s, early aughts vibe.
Book related question. What exactly was the experiment that Pax and his business partners were running? And, what were they trying, data were they trying to collect from this?
I'm trying to, I honestly am trying to remember that. What was
I think
he?
was it
Oh,
ignition?
the
Something?
idea, yeah, the idea was that he would run like spiritual retreats for tech companies, but he would be like data mining in order to get the information to make it feel like you're having a spiritual awakening kind of thing. But he's kind of like a tech version of John Edward, although I don't know how John Edward talks to the dead, but I imagine there's some element of finding out details about people's lives before they go into that studio. But yeah.
Yeah. Do you have any book recommendations for us that would be fun for us to read as a group or just something that you're passionate about?
Ooh. Um, I'm just thinking of what I've read recently. I just finished reading Itch by Gemma Amor. I loved that one. So good. And I also read an arc of Luc Dumas's upcoming book, Nothing Tastes as Good. So, so good. And yeah, I think those are my most recent reads that I would recommend.
Do you read a lot in just the, horror genre right now as it stands, or do you read it from any other genres?
I used to read more widely. These days, I think especially because I'm, I mean, it's a privilege that I'm in a position where I get asked to blurb a lot. So that's kind of like my top priority is reading books to blurb and then trying to like keep up with my friends who are writers. And right now, there's just so many horror books coming out that it's hard to stay on top of everything. Um, but yeah, so lately it's really horror and thriller as well, but mostly horror because I just want to like keep up with what everybody's writing.
That's a good problem to have, that there's too much new stuff.
100%.
So I have a little game for you, and then after we do that, we'll open it up to Q&A. Um,
Cool.
so let me share my screen with you. So what we're gonna play is a movie association. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so don't look at that. I know you saw it. I want to know just the first thing that comes to mind when you see the movie. Obviously, we know what the first one is, so I'll give you a second to think. Okay, are you ready?
Okay.
Scream.
My my mom and dad are going to be so mad at me.
They won't know, I don't think.
No, that's what comes to mind. That's the
Oh, I
quote
thought
from
you were about to
Stu.
say that insert thing here. I'm like, oh, tell me. Okay.
Imagine my parents just appeared behind me in the Zoom chat.
They're like, hi, nice to see you. We're part of the club. Okay. No. Huh, you guessed it. Scream 2.
Oh, um, Carnage Candy. That phrase always stuck in my head of when Randy's talking about the rules of a sequel, and he says it's Carnage Candy.
Hmm.
Apparently, it's just going to be dialogue. It's going to be all.
No, I love it. Pieces.
Oh,
Have you ever seen this?
I have very recently. Um, Mannequin. I don't know. That's what's coming to mind as I'm looking at this. That's trying to be honest with my free association. This
Ren,
one is weird. There's like a weird pool murder, I remember.
there's like kung fu for no reason.
Yeah.
Ren made me watch this. A high recommendation. I know you did.
Oh, Kevin Williamson. Um, yeah, it's yeah, he wrote this before Scream, I believe, um, but yeah, then Scream did well, and they're like, yeah, we'll make that too.
Did you see the remake of this?
I did.
Hmm?
I
Don't
I
tell me.
was baffled, but yeah, I try not to speak ill of other people's work. I just didn't, yeah,
The divas are
under
they're up.
so many divas.
Tourist Trap.
Yes. New Beverly. I saw this. The only time I've seen it was a print screening at New Beverly Theater in LA, which Quentin Tarantino owns, and he just screens his own film prints. And it scared the hell out of me. It's genuinely scary still.
One of our favorites in the club.
Yes.
Oh, well, we already know.
Oh,
Sorry. I didn't know. I didn't find that fact on the internet. So I'll just anyway.
oh. I mean, it's not a thought, it's the theme song. That's what immediately comes to mind. But also Loomis. Like Dr. Loomis is one of my favorite just characters, and he gets more and more insane as the sequels go on.
Halloween 3.
Um, I mean, I'm just picturing that head, the child's head deflating and turning into bugs and snakes. It's so glorious. And also I love that it's called Season of the Witch, but there's no witch. But I guess you could argue that he's a warlock because he's like practicing Irish paganism, but it's so good.
I've never thought that before. Thank you. Okay, last one.
The best film ever made. My students probably are tired of me referencing Jaws, but it's such a teachable film because there's so much in it that just works so well structurally and characters and I just yeah, I never get sick of watching it. I don't know why.
Thank you.
That
And
was so fun.
our Q&A. Okay. So I guess we can kind of self-police, if you want to raise your hand or just unmute and ask your questions. Let's start. I know Holly has one. I'm going to put you on the spot. You have to.
Yeah, this was my first book by you, by the way, so I'm going to go run and get your other ones because I really enjoyed it. But also, I read the short story that you put in You're Never Too Old for Halloween, the anthology one. And I absolutely loved that little short story. I thought it was so great. I don't want to do any spoilers for anyone who hasn't read it, but what was your inspiration for that one? Because I just thought that one was fantastic. I got the hoodie too,
Thank
even with the cover.
Oh yes, that's so rad. Thank you so much for getting that. Yeah, I was really honored that Stephanie at Death by TBR asked me to contribute a story to that. And I think I wanted to just try to tap into the nostalgia of Halloween from my childhood, but also add a very, very dark twist to it. And what I would say is that short, like I mentioned that like novels, I very much plot everything out in advance. Short stories I approach much more like experimental, like let's see where this goes. Um, and so I didn't really, once I started writing it, know exactly where it was headed, and then it went where it went. And then for me, the process is then going back to revise to like tweak things and do setups and payoffs. Um, but yeah, that's one of the darker stories I've written, I think, but also hopefully still fun.
Oh yeah, it was fun. Were you not allowed to go trick-or-treating though? I have to ask because you
Oh
say a
no.
lot of your stories are
Oh,
based on your past.
no, I think that one actually really started too with the idea of exploring the idea of being too old for Halloween. And I think maybe the title came first of You're Never Too Old for Halloween, and then reverse engineering a story and a character of someone who was never allowed to trick or treat until they finally turned 18, and like what would that kind of like making up for lost time kind of energy
Mhm.
feel like? And the expectations, I think that was part of it too, was we build up these expectations for holidays, and when they're a letdown, it's that like deflation. Yeah,
hmm Yeah. So I really enjoyed both of them, but I wanted to give that one a blurb too.
thank you. I appreciate it.
Have you been published in any other short story collections or?
Yeah, so Crewborn Press did Punk Goes Horror, which I always have to qualify this because when I was invited to write something, there wasn't a title yet, and they're like, but it's going to be like punk and emo songs. So I immediately went for emo, and I wrote. So basically, we were asked to pick a song and write a horror story inspired by it, and I picked "Screaming Infidelities" by Dashboard Confessional. Um, and so now I feel like a fraud because it says punk goes horror, and I picked like the most whiny acoustic emo song that is so not punk, but it's and then I've had short stories in magazines like Dark Matter magazine, Monstrous magazine, and then it hasn't been announced yet, so I can't say, but I was invited to write something for a Big Five anthology actually that I'm very honored and excited about and terrified, but yeah,
Congrats. I can't wait.
thank you.
Becca said that was her first ringtone. Hey.
Love that. Was it the actual song or was it like a beep boop bop version of it?
It was the actual song. I like
Oh, that's amazing.
paid 25 cents for it or something. I don't know.
I love that.
Well, my parents paid for it because it was on their phone bill, so.
Yeah, I'm sure you gave them the quarter.
Yes. I'm gonna scroll through and see if there's any questions. So again, if anybody has any questions, feel free. Don't be shy.
I will restate mine. Was Dr. Grady Hendrix, Paul Tremblay? And if so, who was Lulu slash Lauren?
Whoa, that, it never occurred to me. Um, I mean, the Grady connection did after I wrote it. I was like, oh, I wonder if his name was just in my head. But the fact that Paul is also there never occurred to me. Yeah, that's now I'm gonna pretend like that was an homage to them. When I see Paul next, I'll tell him. Um, but yeah, Lauren slash Luna um, is that kind of duality is definitely somebody that I had encountered in LA and learned what their real name was, kind of thing. And yeah,
Hmm.
I love it. Thank you. Well, we'll reverse engineer an author. We'll find someone.
yeah.
Yeah.
And Dashboard Confessionals, Screaming Infidelities was on Punk Goes Acoustic Volume 3. So they themselves, they verified you. If they can be
Thank
on Punk
you.
Goes Acoustic, then you can be on Punk Goes Horror.
I'm so relieved to hear that. Thank you. I feel vindicated if I can name another dashboard confessionals.
Um, I I had a question about like some more meaning from the therapist being I kind of followed, you said you were like working through some relationship stuff in this book earlier. Um, and I kind of got the impression there was a lot of like the therapist felt like Hannah owed him a deeper, more intimate relationship because of what he felt like he could do for her, or he felt like because of their relationship, she owed him something more intimate. Um, and then with the way Ben reacted to her, like not not so enthusiastic reaction to the marriage proposal. Um, like I felt like there was kind of a theme of men and even some of the men in the retreat, the boyfriends, kind of a theme of them wanting what they want and
Mhm.
kind of trying to be more manipulative or trying to overpower like what they see as like the weaker female. So I would just wondered if you could talk a little bit about your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think that strain of toxic masculinity was definitely kind of front of mind of thinking about um, like talking about Ben with the idea that like a man who seems kind of nice on the surface, but like if you put him in the right situation or you offend him in some way, that like that turning of the personality coming out of the like entitlement for sure. And the idea like we were talking about that someone like that could end up in any situation or profession or anything. I think that sense of entitlement was something that I was definitely kind of infusing into both of those characters and the kind of the two-facedness but yeah that for me was definitely something from a past relationship of being with somebody who literally could turn on a dime and that felt like a very real and scary and threatening kind of energy to try to kind of encapsulate.
Yeah, there's a comment about the entitlement being exactly what made Hannah work so well. And I think kind of hearing more about that, that also lands with me too, of, that like fighting that entitlement from people, whether it's people entitled, in the hospital or her boss or patients or her friends or whatever. Starting to see that because I
It
thought of that or picked up on that on my read.
Yeah, it actually is very much the whole premise of my Screaming Infidelity story actually is like from the perspective of the whiny emo dude who just got broken up with, and the story kind of plays with that, like the allegiance of like at first you're like sympathizing with the character who's clearly heartbroken, but then it's a horror story, so it takes a dark turn, and there is that like that shade of the dark underbelly of the entitled sad boy emo energy, and how manipulative it is. And so yeah, it feels like a, unfortunately, yeah, like a common thread to explore.
I had a question for you, related to what the previous person was talking about, which was what was her relationship with Ben an abusive relationship? Was she in a physically abusive relationship with him? Was that something you were exploring? I guess when I was first reading the book, just the way the her her flashes back to what happened, I thought perhaps she had killed him in self-defense or something of that
Hmm.
nature. And I guess I'm wondering, were you going in that direction? Did you change that, for him to um and sorry, spoiler alert for hopefully so close your ears if you haven't read it, but just for him, the way he did end up dying quite a- accidentally, through no fault of hers. But was that a direction you were going? Was that he was somewhat of an abuser? And that's the impression I got from their relationship, at least.
Yeah, in my mind and in some of the details I tried to put in there was that uh, there was absolutely emotional abuse and manipulation. One of the details was around very early in the book when she's talking about like his relationship with food and how she had to like secretly sneak sneak food that he didn't feel was healthy. And it was meant to be something you could just kind of breeze right by, but in retrospect look back at and maybe see like there was a controlling element there, but it was always trying to find the balance of how can I plant little seeds and details that she's also reflecting back on, but not make it too overt up front, so that you could still feel like. But yeah, by the time we get to the mountaintop, the threat of escalation to physical violence was definitely intentional. That she realized now, like, oh, it was there all along, and there was versions of it, but now it's literally reached its peak. But yeah, it was always trying to find like how can I put little details that you can look back on, but not tip the hand too early.
Yeah, I think that'll be interesting, like on a reread, picking up some of those things, because obviously you're so like enthralled with the story and what's happening that you may miss those details, and I'm sure that reflects real life where things go on and you sort of miss those subtle signs.
Mhm.
The cover. Did you have a hand in the cover design?
So I'm very grateful to Poison Pen for both the title and the cover. When I sold the book, the title was Good Vibes Only. Um, and I still think that's a fun title, but it doesn't really sell. If you just hear the title alone, you don't know what genre it is. It doesn't really totally sell it. And they have a process where like their whole marketing team, I got an email with like, here are like 3 dozen titles that we've put together. Do you want to rule any of these out before we go test them out? And I still don't know what their testing process is, but maybe they have people locked in a basement somewhere, just shouting titles at them.
We'll put
Um,
the name
and
dog
so
ghost.
I, yes. So I like, removed some titles, and Breathe and Bleed Out was one that they brought to the table. And I was like, ooh. Um, and yeah, they tested the ones, and that was the one that won. And I was like, no argument. That's a really rad title. I love it. And with the cover, we had, they sent, I think, 6 different covers. Some of them were just kind of color variants or moving elements around. Um, and again, I got to say, let's take these out of the equation. I don't like this one. I wanted to just point to this one and be like, this is obviously the winner. Can we just do this? But I was like, I will defer to the testing process, and this is the one that won, and it's the one I wanted to win. So yeah, when I saw it, I was just like it. But they also, to backtrack, they did ask for any details from the book that I thought might be helpful for the cover. So I think I mentioned like, well, there's a pickaxe in it, there's a rattlesnake. Um, I don't remember I mean, Joshua Tree, obviously, but I especially love the spiraling vortex of stars. Like it's such a cool kind of backdrop that plays into the whole energy vortex and potential supernatural thing.
Yeah, it's great. When I saw the cover, having a background in design myself, I was
Yeah.
like, oh, be for real. It's so good. Sometimes I see a book cover, I'm like, I will say, did you see Paul Tremblay's new cover? It's so good.
Oh yeah, it's amazing.
Some of his other past covers, I'm like, oh man, there, you know, there's
I
challenge,
know.
ambiguity,
And it
but
was,
yeah,
yeah,
it just looks,
that
oh yes,
it looks so I mean, I love that colors are coming back in a bit like vibrant, like unabashedly bright colors. But yeah, I did say one of my notes when we before they started doing the covers, I was like, I know Poison Pen does a lot of thrillers, and I hate those generic, not theirs specifically, but in general, like thriller books these days all look the same. Like they have the big font and it's like there's a dark house with a light on in the attic window or something. Like they're all interchangeable. And I was like, let's please lean into this as a horror book. And like I remember saying I want it to leap off of the shelf. And the fact that there's now like a hand reaching off of the cover, I was like, all right, you took it literally. I like that.
yeah, it's great. I'm happy that you're happy. So we're approaching 8:30, so it's been an hour. Does anybody have any final questions before we part ways?
I just wanted to read my favorite line in the book. And I think it's like perfect based on what you just said. It is, oh, I believe this whole valley is filled with the spirits of the dead. Kimmy takes a hit. But I do not believe they'd be wasting their precious time trying to communicate with white folks through energy vortexes. That was a great line.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I love Kimmy very much. No, that I appreciate that very much. Thank you.
I feel like that's the perfect note to end on. Thanks.
Thank you all so much for taking the time to read the book and chat with me about it. This really means a lot to me.
Yeah, of course. And thanks for joining. It's really nice to have you.
Oh,
It's been almost, what, over a year in the making, so it's nice that we got to do this. Yay.
yes.
Thank you. All right. If anybody else has any follow-up questions or whatever, feel free to send them my way. I can make sure Brian gets them. But thank you so much for joining.
Thank you all so much. Have a good one.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you.